Warning, this podcast is not for the faint of heart.
We keep it real and raw.
And talk about issues that other podcasts wouldn't dare. This is the Truth of the Matter podcast with Dr. Spencer. Step into our world. What do you do if you fall in love with one of your kid's friends who's over 18? How do you handle getting caught in bed with your boss? Why do girls like bad boys? Are you burned out from an unbalanced career and personal life? Are you still working while your kids are telling you how their days went? Our passion is to help people in relationships, anyone you have a connection with in life, neighbors, coworkers, family, spouse, kids, yourself, and helping you achieve the work-life balance. Let's have some fun and let's get educated. This is the Truth of the Matter podcast. And now your host, Dr. Lamar Renee Spencer.
Well, hello, everyone. I am so excited. I have Mr. Simon Later here, and he is going to talk about having to choose between career and also family. But before we get into it, and I introduce him, which I know I'm not going to do him any justice, I just want to say make sure that you follow me on my socials and also subscribe so that you will receive the episodes as soon as they drop. So Simon, thank you so very much for joining. I appreciate you. And again, I just feel like we've known each other forever and you have just been a wealth of information.
Lamar, thank you so much for having me on. It's long overdue and I'm so delighted that we finally managed to make this happen. So it's a real joy to finally be spending some time online with you. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Yes, well, thank you so very much. So, as I said earlier, we're going to be talking about choosing between career and family. And I know oftentimes someone may say, why would you have to choose between your career and your family? Of course, silly, you should choose your career. Your family. Why would you even need to make that choice? And to each their own, right? But there's times where you draw out your pros and your cons and you say, you know what? Nah, I think I'm going to choose this career path right here. So never say never. So Simon, give us a little, well, I'm not going to say little, but tell us what happened with you.
Okay, so it's quite interesting insofar as that you can probably hear from my accent that despite living in Las Vegas, I'm actually from the UK. Okay, and so my journey is such that I started, I kind of bounced around a few different jobs in my early 20s. I started my own business doing car alarm distribution when I was like 21, 22. Built it to a point where I was actually bought out within a couple of years. So I managed to put enough in the bank that wasn't enough to retire, but certainly meant that I could decide what I wanted to do next. And then started working in recruitment and staffing, which is where I pretty much built the bulk of my career. Majority of my career has been in staffing and recruitment. And then in 2013, we decided that we wanted to move from Manchester, England, which is where we were living at the time. We had 2 kids, and move across to the US. And one of the big drivers behind wanting to move was because my standard kind of day would be getting up at kind of 6 a.m., getting up, getting ready, going to the gym, heading to the office, and then getting home at probably 7, 8 o'clock at night. And other than weekends, I was never seeing my kids. So I realized something needed to change. And there were a variety of factors that came into play. But ultimately, when we moved to Las Vegas, which is where I'm talking to you from, one of the big factors, the big kind of life-changing factors for me was I was able to almost, rather than having like an hour's commute either way, my commute was like 10 minutes.
Oh, God.
I was able to be home pretty much every night for dinner. I could put my kids to bed. The whole lifestyle, the work-life balance was dramatically changed. And that really kind of set me on a journey of trying to help people balance their career with their family. Okay, you made a very interesting point in your intro of choosing between, and for some people there is a choice to be made. And funnily enough, I noticed I've noticed when I've watched this podcast before, one of the things that you say in your intro is, are you spending too much time working when you should be having dinner or spending time with your kids? Okay. And I was guilty of that. Okay. And I think that to an extent, we're all guilty of that. Well, there are times over the course of our working week, and maybe even that weekends, where we are having to make that choice between, do I do this thing now, which is for work, or do I do this thing now, which is for my kids? Okay. So 7:30 at night, maybe it's dinner time, or maybe it's time to put one of the kids to bed and read them a story, and you get a phone call from a client or a phone call from your boss, right? Or you haven't quite finished, that piece of paperwork or proposal that needs to go out, all right? So we are making choices frequently between career and family. And to be honest, there isn't necessarily a right answer. It's easy to say, oh, well, family always has to come first. Not necessarily, like right now, you and I are having a business conversation. You're my friend, but we're still having a business conversation.
Right.
If one of my kids phones me just to have a chat, which, I've got an 18-year-old, he often does, career or family, clearly career has to come first. My work has to come first right now. There's a difference between what's most important and what's most important right now. Those are distinctions, okay? But putting that to one side, overall, there are often times when people feel that their work and their business life, their career, their work is in conflict, and they have to make a choice, okay? My mission throughout my headhunting career, and particularly over the last 10 years or so, has been to help people find ways to harmonize those things so the conflict between them is dramatically reduced. And that's what brought us together.
Right. Well, I am so guilty of that because, I have to sigh because I went through that last week and even the greater part of this week. And it's 1 or 2 in the morning and I'm preparing for a presentation the next day for work. And at the same time, my daughter's trying to tell me how her day was going and about her having a test, and then she had a quiz in another class. It was just so many things. And I heard her. I can't necessarily say I was listening because I was trying to concentrate on what I need to get done. And, even though I help people with work-life balance, you're right. Sometimes even for me, it's hard to harmonize the two. I struggle with that too. And it's not something you can just, you feel like you just master it. It's not about that. It's about time management, yes. But I know sometimes I've been guilty of it. You're being pulled in so many different places and you're burned out, but you have to keep going. And can I say if I chose my career over my family? Well, I didn't necessarily look at it that way. I looked at it as, well, I have to work because I need to keep the lights on, right? I need to make sure that she has what she needs. Even, of course, like you said, your son 18, but my daughter's 14. So now I'm thinking about not even just now, but even years before, college. So many different things that I think about. But yes, there's times when I'm like, you know what, I have to do this extra couple of hours at work because, again, you have tight deadlines. And if you can't meet your deadlines, often you're looked at, you're not a team player. You're almost like the weakest link on the team. I mean, there's so many different mantras. And
100%. It's interesting that you say that, because oftentimes when I'm talking to my clients, and my clients are typically senior kind of VP and C-level executives. I operate within the cybersecurity sector. That's the market that I work in, and the positions that I fill, the appointments that I do, are C-level and VP level. So we're talking typically half, $750,000 a year salary earners. Okay, so we're talking, people that are high net worth individuals and high earning individuals. Okay, and the challenge a lot of them have is being able to be present with their family, but at the same time keep their career moving forward and achieve their career and work objectives.
Right.
Most of them are quarterly driven, as in, at the beginning of every quarter, whether it's January 1st or whatever, right? The beginning of every quarter, the clocks reset and they go again, and they've got 12 weeks. They operate in 12-week windows. Okay?
Yes.
All right. And for them, the stakes, it could be argued, are even higher, because when you're working at that kind of level, it's not just your livelihood that's on the line if you mess up, it's your team. And very often these people have got teams of hundreds and hundreds of people that ultimately report into them. So getting the work-life balance is really important, because it's the old adage, nobody lay on their deathbed and said, damn, I wish I would have spent more time in the office.
Right. And you're absolutely right. I never forget, right? So I reported to a senior VP, and she had older children. She remarried, and then she had smaller children. So they were about 7 years old, and she had twins. And so one is in football, the other one is in soccer. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know how this lady did it. And then on top of that, she came down with cancer. So I never forget her saying that we were talking about work, and her nose started bleeding because with the medication, she started getting like bloody nose. And she said, even when I'm getting my chemo, she said, I still have to perform. And even when I'm going through, I still have to be present for my children. And at that moment, I'm thinking, you know what? I don't know if I could do it. And the reason why is, you're right. The stakes are high because you're receiving probably quarterly bonuses. You're looking at your performance. Your team's performance is based on your bonus and your performance. It's a lot. And sometimes, I never forget, sometimes I'd see these people, and I understand now. They were like alcoholics, habitual smokers. You name it. And then after work, they were still really on the clock, because now they had to entertain their clients. So they were never shut off. And again, I said, I don't want to be at that top of that ladder, because I don't want that responsibility. And then when they present, you know how it is. Like, there's nothing for me to see somebody I know on TV or, because they have to present the quarterly earnings for the company or whatever it is. That's a big responsibility. And even when you come into a company, let's just say they're already in debt and you're in that finance area, oh my goodness, I can't even imagine. I don't want to imagine. I said, you know what? I'm going to stay in the middle, and I'm okay with that.
So to pivot to some kind of techniques that people can maybe put into practice. Okay. One of the key. Okay. To solve the problem, we first have to define it, right? So, why most people find themselves in conflict because of their, where their work and their family life are coming into conflict. There are kind of two separate situations, and we'll hopefully we'll have time to cover both. Okay, so the first situation is you're not working in a toxic environment, so you don't necessarily need to change your job. Okay, but you just need to kind of define your boundaries better. Okay.
Yeah.
Now let's dig into that a little bit more. Okay. Because this is probably, of the two, this is probably the more common and get the easier one to fix. Okay. So what we're talking about is either someone that works for themselves, this happens a lot with entrepreneurs, or with people who are in a job they're enjoying. It's going great, but they're being dragged in too many different places. Okay. So the first thing to do is you have to establish better boundaries. Okay.
Yeah.
And those boundaries are bilateral. They go both ways. Okay. So for this, first of all, your calendar, your schedule is your friend. Okay. And that is the Bible upon which everything is committed. Okay. If it ain't in your Bible, if it ain't on your schedule, you're not going to do it. And equally, you schedule time for meetings, you schedule time for the activities you're going to do. You also schedule time for family, which means you say, right, I'm going to finish work at 6 p.m. because that's what time dinner is. And I'm the expectation I'm setting to my co-workers, my boss, my clients, whatever it is, you will not reach me after 6 p.m.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, we can, of course, I'm not going to say break the rule, but we can make exceptions to the rule. For example, if let's say I know that tonight I've got a proposal that I need to finish because it's got to be out on my client's desk in the morning. So I will assess how much extra time I need. And I'll say, okay, fine. So tonight I'm not going to finish at 6. I'm going to finish at 7. But the time I am spending, I'm not going to be responding to emails. I'm not going to be responding to texts. I'm just going to focus on this thing because that's what's in the Bible. Okay. So that's the first thing. Your schedule is the cornerstone upon which you govern your life, and it creates the boundaries so that if I'm working in my home office, which is where you find me, okay, when the door over there is just out of shot, the door over there is closed, no one can come in. It's a do not disturb. Okay. So my family won't come in here. And by the way, it's not too bad now, but during COVID, when as well as running my businesses, I was also dean and principal of the Lader Homeschool. Okay. And my kids were, it's a couple of years ago, my kids were here. They were working, they were all like being schooled at home. Okay. So then it was a lot more challenging, and and the boundaries were very, very important then. Okay. It's a little easier now because we can just turn our phones off, put them on silent and do not disturb. So you create the boundaries. This is the time I'm going to respond to emails, texts, WhatsApps, Discords, whatever else. This is the time I'm going to do this task. This is the time I'm going to do this task. This is the time I'm going to do this task. And after this, I'm off the clock, and that's family time. So as well as you creating boundaries between work and family time, even within work, you're creating boundaries. Okay? Because, Lamar, you can't finish that report if a colleague is calling you, if a co-worker is calling you, if you're responding to a text, if you're responding to a WhatsApp message or whatever. And now between LinkedIn emails, Facebook direct messages, WhatsApps, Discords, texts, phone calls, emails, the amount of channels that are coming in requiring and demanding instant replies is unlike with anyone has ever faced before. And rather than that making our lives easier, it's made our life so much harder, because if you're like me, you're working on a document, you get a text, you go to the text, you reply to it, and then you see, oh, someone sent me an email, you reply to that. And then before you know it, you spent 10 minutes doing other stuff, and it takes you 5 minutes to get back into the document. So even though you just responded to one text, that could kill 20 minutes. Whereas if it's like, okay, this is me time. And even if it's just, even if those boundaries are purely for your own purposes, you don't necessarily have to advertise that to people. Okay. If you just say, right, this time now, I am creating a boundary for myself that this time now, I'm only going to be doing whatever it is. Like, for example, this time now, right now, I am exclusively focused on talking to you.
No,
okay? My phone off. I've turned do not disturb on my laptop. I'm going to get no interruptions. I'm exclusively focused on talking to you. And I would imagine you're all the same. All right.
Yep.
This is what people need to do for
Mhm.
all of their work activities. Refer to their Bible, their schedule, everything's scheduled, the time they're spending to do whatever, okay? And then they'll know at the end of their day that they are now free to have family time. And equally, family time is do not disturb, okay?
Yeah.
And that means that we are always present in the moment. The biggest challenge I think that people have when it comes to work-life balance is that they are always thinking about the thing they're not doing.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, the amount of times, I mean, I've seen it, I'm sure you have as well, when you're in a restaurant and you turn and you see there are two people, you know, a married couple or a couple that are dating, and they're on the, you know, and they're on the table over there, and they're both on their phones. You know, you're with the person you love more than anyone else in the world, and you're choosing to be on your phone.
Right. And it's funny because you're absolutely right. I know a couple of times I've gone out just with colleagues or with just family and friends, right? So I look over and it never ceases to amaze me. And everyone is like, everyone's doing something. No one is talking. It's almost like you can hear a pin drop. And I remember a few years ago, it was almost like you had to like lean in to talk to whomever was at your table because you couldn't hear them. Now it's the complete opposite. Even the babies are,
Yeah,
you know,
and
everything.
why is and what this has led to? I'm not going to be critical of technology or whatever, but what it has led to is that people are not present in the moment. Okay, which in itself is also a challenge when it comes to work-life balance, because they might be physically with their family, but they're not present. They might be there, but they're not there. Okay,
Right.
so when it comes to bringing together and the ability to not have to choose between work and family,
Mhm.
between job and family, the simple answer is make that choice and make the
Yes.
appropriate choice in advance, so that, okay, right now I'm going to do this, right now I'm going to do this, right now I'm going to do this, right now I'm going to do this. Okay,
Mhm.
it's very interesting. I can't say whether this is true right now because it's been a long time since I did computer sciences. But when I
Mhm.
was in university, I remember one of our lecturers saying that when computers, I mean, this is going back a long time, but when computers multitask, they're not really multitasking. What they're actually doing is shifting in lightning quick time between whatever task is the priority of the moment. Okay? We are not computers, but equally, if a computer can't really multitask, we shouldn't be asked to either. And
Right.
so rather than trying to be at work when you really need to be at home, or doing home stuff when you really should be at work,
Right.
separate the two, make considered, conscious choices in advance, and then execute them. And it'll mean that you are fully present for each task you're doing at work, and then fully present for each task you're doing with your family.
I like that how you talk about being present in the moment because I mean, come on. Most of us have been guilty of it. You're there, your body is there, but your mind is somewhere completely different. And for me, I remember even early on, before I started helping people, I'm like, okay, I'm at my daughter's soccer game, so she sees me, and but I'm on my computer. And I remember one day she said, "Mom, did you see me make a goal?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah. And but you know, I really didn't want to. You know, it was funny because I really didn't want to say yeah because I know with her she'll follow up with another question. So now I have to feel like I'm not telling the truth, you know, and then I have to come up with some weird excuse that really didn't matter because I did not see it.
Right.
You know, I was not present in the moment.
Yeah.
And I know people struggle with that all the time. And you're right. You hear employees, you hear people saying, you know what? We do what we have to do so we can do what we want to do. But do we really? You know, is it worth it?
I'll tell you another thing as well, and we're kind of going a little bit off the point, but nonetheless, I do think it's a point worth making, is that there are some people who validate and measure themselves by how busy they are. And it's almost like they assign value to how in demand they are, and they create the demand by, frankly, being unproductive. So basically work mounts up because they're doing busy work, and then suddenly it's like, oh my god, I've got all this stuff to do, I'm so busy. Well, the reason why they're so busy is because they've been so inefficient with their time. Okay.
Yes.
And
Oh my gosh, good point.
and oftentimes there'll be a direct line between inactivity and inefficiency.
Yep.
And how crazy busy somebody thinks they are. Okay. And very often on a subconscious level, it's because they never want to feel they've got nothing to do. So they kind of create things to do by being inefficient. That you see that more often than you can guess.
Oh my gosh. Yes. It's so funny because my coworker and I were just talking about that. She's like, if I'm not doing something, I feel like I'm being inefficient because there's always something to do. And that's always her mantra. And I'm like, well, just shut off. It's okay.
You know what? If I can finish work at 3:00, I will. I'd love to. Wouldn't that be awesome? If I can get everything I need to do, if I can satisfy all of my clients, have all of my business development activity done, all of my lead generation activity done, all of my marketing done, every single thing I need to do, my administration, my, working with my team and, figuring out all the stuff I need to do and brainstorm, whatever. If I can get all that done, I feel like I've done a real great, efficient, honest day's work by 3:00.
Yeah.
I'll finish at 3:00. I'll go for a walk. I'll go to the gym. I'll nourish my soul. Okay. There are a million things that you can be doing. Okay. This idea of I'm chained to my desk because I've got to clock in and clock out. As an entrepreneur, I have the freedom not to have to do that. Okay. So talking about the other, I said there were two types of people. Okay. Let's talk about the other type. So there are, unfortunately, a lot of people who it's not so much that they're having to choose between their work and their life, or their work and their family, but the unhappiness they are feeling at work is bleeding into their family time.
Right.
Okay? Now, I hope what I'm about to talk about has never really impacted on you and has never impacted on any of the people that are listening to this. But there are a lot of people out there for whom they are so unhappy in their job that come, Sunday afternoon, they're already getting that kind of nervous butterfly in the stomach feeling.
Yep.
Because they're dreading going into work Monday morning. Okay. And they are unhappy at work. They come home on Monday night, and every night they come home and they're like, oh. And they go to bed, and when they're falling asleep, they're just not looking to look forward to the following day. Okay. Yeah. And the thing is that what a lot of people don't necessarily consider is that for a typical say 9 to 5 or 9 to 6 or from Monday to Friday, okay, for a typical 40-hour working week, you're actually spending a lot more time at work than you think. Most people think, well, 40 hours a week, there are 168 hours in a week, so that's less than 25%. What's that? So if I don't enjoy what I'm doing, what's the problem, right? There's a lot more problems though, because first of all, most people have, even today with remote working, a lot of people still have to commute. And even if you're not commuting, there's a mental commuting, as in 15-20 minutes before you actually start your day. Even if you're in the kitchen making breakfast or whatever, you're starting to think about work. You're in that kind of work mode, okay? And similarly, you've got at the back end of the day, another probably half hour to an hour of either a physical commute, driving in from the office, or a mental commute where you're winding down, okay? So already now, 40 hours a week is probably closer to 50 or 55 hours a week, okay? Now, here's the thing. most people are starting to think about work from the minute they wake up. Okay. And then they're in work mode from the minute they wake up, because you're waking up and it's like, I might have to put some breakfast in my kids' mouths, and maybe, I've got to do the school run. And occasionally I do the school run, right? We're part of a carpool, so I often do the school run myself. Although thankfully mine is at the end of the day rather than the beginning of the day. But nonetheless, so even with that in mind, you're still thinking about work from most people from the minute they wake up. Okay, so you're in work mode from the minute you wake up all the way through to probably about an hour after you get home from work. So if most people get home from work at around, say, 6, and people are going to sleep around, I don't know, 10:30, 11 o'clock, let's say you've got 5 hours. 5 hours. Where are we? Over there. 5 hours. The camera's the other way around. That 5 hours from Monday morning to Friday night. 5 hours a day. That's 25 hours over the course of a 120-hour week. All right. Only 5 waking hours that you're not in work mode. All right. So if you think about it, even if you discount the amount of time you're asleep, if you discount that, okay, you're looking at, for most people, less than 30% of their waking hours from Monday morning to Friday night, they're at home. The rest of the time, 70% of their waking hours, they're in work. They're in their work mode rather than their home mode. All right. So if you're not happy at work, not only is it going to poison your week, it's going to poison your weekend as well. Yeah, you might come home on Friday and go, God, weekend, and then go to the bar or hang out with your friends or go to a restaurant or whatever it is. And then you might have a good time on a Saturday, but come Sunday morning or midway through the day, Sunday afternoon, you're thinking,
oh, that's me.
Yeah, I'm going back to work and I'm really not enjoying it, right?
Yes.
So the challenge that people have is being able to mentally separate their work life from their home life. But when you've got that much of an emotional toxicity, because of how unhappy you are at work, it's impossible to do. It's literally like trying to stop a tsunami with a paperclip. You just can't do it. Okay. So what do you do? Okay. Well, I hate to say it, you have to change jobs.
Yeah.
And the response I get when people say that to me is, well, that's easy to say, but no one's hiring right now. All right. And I've got to tell you, if I had a nickel for every time someone said to me, but no one's hiring right now, I would have $11.45. I'm kidding.
Oh, yeah.
The point is that first of all, I mean, there are a bunch of myths that we can smash through. Like things like people are always hiring. There are, irrespective of how frustrating the job market is, there are always jobs out there. But the key thing to remember, and we can talk for hours about this subject alone, I know we don't have the time, but the key thing to remember is that being happy in your job is not a luxury, it's a right, and more importantly, it's a responsibility you have for yourself and a responsibility you have for your family and for your friends. Because if you're unhappy in your job, you are not being the significant other to your significant other. You're not being the optimal parent you can be to your kids. You're not being the optimal friend you can be to your friends, because you are living with the burden of a toxic relationship with your job, and a relationship with a job is just as important as the relationship you have with the people around you. So you owe it to yourself and the people around you to correct it. And very often correcting it means finding another job.
You're right, because, I have to admit, when I was laid off a few years ago, that was probably the happiest day of my life. I was so happy. And I never forget my boss saying, she's not sure what happened. And my direct person said, yes, she does. I'm telling you, Simon, I was so happy because I felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders and I didn't have to decide, like, okay, well, I'm going to work 12 hours today or 13 hours tomorrow. It just, I was happy. But I will say something that you touched on, and that is about, oh my God, I just lost my train of thought. About being happy in your career. And, when people are not happy, it actually shows. But oftentimes I hear even my clients saying that they're not happy in their jobs, but not that they're in such niched areas that they feel pigeonholed, or they're at a certain age where they're thinking, no one's going to hire me. And I'm like, that's not true. You can build sometimes on your resume, you can have it redone. But I think even sometimes taking a small pay cut is not a bad thing to gain your, your life back per se. You see people all the time. It's like, oh my gosh, they've aged. Well, yeah, because they're so freaking stressed out. And everyone's
Yeah,
hiring.
I completely agree. It's interesting that that the majority of people, I have found that the majority of people who are unhappy, the fear of rejection
Yeah.
is part of what keeps them where they are, and
Yeah.
and toxic bosses know this, okay, or they just don't know what to do. It's like, I want to do the next thing, but I don't know what to do. Okay, I want to take action, but I don't know what action to take. Okay, and there are a number of, frankly, myths out there as to what the job market is like. Okay, I'm too niche, no one's going to hire me. I'm too old, no one's going to hire me. We're going into a recession, no one's going to hire me. The interest rates are too high, no one's going to hire me. It's Thursday, no one's going to hire me. Yeah, I mean, seriously, the amount of excuses that people can make, are crazy. Okay, and if anyone, if the people that are listening to this and are finding that this is resonating with them, should take away one thing, is that everybody is always hiring. Every company is always hiring. Why? Because if somebody comes along with a solution to a problem that they have, they will hire them. Okay? For example, right? If you didn't have a nickel in your pocket, right? If you were broke as all heck, okay? Would you go on a spending spree?
No.
Of course you would. Right. However, if you were broke as all heck, but we're in the desert and we're thirsty, and someone came past you and said, do you want to buy a bottle of water? What would you do?
Oh, yeah. I'm gonna give
Of course you'd buy it. You're thirsty, all right? Even if you were spending the last nickel in your pocket, or even if you wrote them an IOU and said, I'll pay you twice what you want for it now, tomorrow when I get to the other side of the desert, right? Whoever, it doesn't matter what the fortunes of a company are. If somebody can come along and solve their problem, they'll get hired. Okay, so the trick is, find a company that has a problem that you are uniquely positioned to solve, and then go talk to them.
You're right.
It's really that simple. Okay.
You're right. They'll create a position for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, by the way, just as a side point, I really wasn't coming on to pitch this, but just while we're talking, if any of the people that are listening to this feel that they might need some help on this, one of my companies is called Salisi Academy, and we have a product that, Christ, is normally priced at like 200 and something bucks, but we've actually, just because we knew what the economy is in a bit of a tight spot right now, we've actually massively reduced the price from $200 and something down to $36. So if you want me to share the link for if people want to access that, I'll be more than happy to.
Yeah, absolutely. 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 Just tell them one more time for people who didn't pay attention the first time.
Okay, so it's actually called the Ultimate Job Hunting Toolkit, and it is a whole load of resources that you would need to be able to find the job that you love. It's everything from a prioritization map where you can really figure out what you're actually looking for in a job, and very often it takes it from the things of, okay, what's repelling you from what you're doing right now to what you want to do moving forward. There is an amazing resume writing tool. There is a tracker so you can track the kind of companies you want to go after, and if people want to, there's also the option to get a whole boatload of really, really good videos that kind of walk you through every stage of the process as well. Yeah, considering that we're regularly pricing it at, I think, $249. I think we're doing it just because of the economy, the state that it is. We're selling it for $36. So if people want it, I'll provide the link as well.
Absolutely. I mean, just the resume can cost you $200.
Absolutely. There's a boatload of value here, a lot of value here.
Yeah, a cover letter, $100.
Right.
You know, and I always feel like invest in you, because it's going to save you so much time going forward. So much time.
100%. 100%.
Right? Yeah, and we're talking about this. This is why this stuff is important. Absolutely, because there's people out there tired all the time, you know, just feel like they need. I always hear the saying, if I had one more hour, just one more hour, I'm like, well, what would you do? Or they'll say, I don't like Mondays. I said, well, then Tuesday becomes Monday. Right? So, you know, it's just, you're right. It's just a matter of finding the career or the job that really suits you. I know when I was going to college, I did. Now, even with my current job, yes, I did. I wanted to stay home and work.
Right.
You know, it was certain things I wanted to do. And I mean, COVID made it a little easier too. But you're right. Everywhere is hiring. They have all kind of posters and like advertising everywhere. Companies that I've never seen advertised like that before. Everywhere is hiring.
Right. Absolutely. And I know it's obviously not as simple as it sounds, but at the end of the day, the point I want people to understand is that it doesn't matter what your circumstances are. There is another job out there for you. It might, for some people, it'll be easier than others. For some people, it'll be harder than others to find it.
Right.
But if you follow a process, and there are plenty of processes out there, I think ours is pretty good. But if you follow a process that you follow it diligently and consistently, you will find the right job at the end of the process.
Absolutely. I love it. Thank you so much. And yes, we're going to post that. I don't know if you can. I was going to see if you can post it in there. But yeah, I'm not sure. I'll definitely get it posted for you though, because I think people need that. They need it. You know, even for nothing else, the resume part.
I've just sent you the link. If you want to post that for all to see, then that'd be great.
Absolutely. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, you gave us a wealth of information. I love it. And it's going to be more to come. Absolutely. Thank you so very much for being on. Is there any final thought you'd like to say before I surprise him and say he's coming back?
Well, the last thing I would say is that life will take you on such an unexpected journey. It really will. And pitfalls very often become the foundation of the most incredible possibilities.
Yes.
And certainly from my point of view, the journey that my life has taken from living in Manchester, England, moving to the US, setting up Salisi, having our headhunting business, Salisi Human Capital, then setting up Salisi Academy, which is the company that's created the Ultimate Job Hunting Toolkit. And then COVID and all the challenges that happened, and then the next venture that we're going to be talking about soon, they've all come from seeing opportunity from challenges and then rising to those challenges. And for me, having a positive outlook and embracing everything with a can-do attitude is what makes all the difference. So if people can just get out of their own way, instill some discipline, for example, like we talked about earlier, about creating those boundaries and having a strong commitment to what they schedule, and then instilling that discipline themselves and in the people around them, then they will find, hopefully, that they'll never have to choose between their job and their career.
Absolutely.
And their family, I should say.
Absolutely. But one thing I'd like to add is this, right? When I was looking for jobs, I made sure to read the description, because I wanted a job where we had like a two-way conversation or two-way agreement, right? So they needed me for something, I needed them for something. And I made sure that I wanted to make sure that I had that two-way, agreement. And honestly, I have to say that I do. I really do, and I love it. So just make sure that, again, and all these things may not work for you, but like I said, having making certain things work for me. And also, when you start doing different things, like even with the podcasting or whatever, like social media, you never know who you're going to meet. You never know who you're going to come in contact with. The person next to you may actually be able to offer you a career job.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the bigger your network, the more opportunities you'll have. So unfortunately, it is an extrovert's world in that respect. I'll tell you one other thing as well, and I know this kind of feels like the third of the Lord of the Rings movies where it spent half an hour trying to finish. But but the one thing I'll tell you is that again, it's a fallacy, but the truth of the matter is that the best people in the industry aren't necessarily the best paid in the industry. Okay, just because you're the best doesn't mean you're going to earn the most. And the flip side is, if you're not the best, you could still earn the most. All right. Let me give you a great example. Okay. Probably 5 or 6 years ago, the two most high-profile female judges in the US were Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Supreme Court Justice, and Judge Judy. Okay, they were the two most high-profile female judges. Okay, now I don't remember off the top of my head, but so you'll forgive me if I'm kind of fudging the figures a little bit. But a Supreme Court Justice, I think, earns about $150,000 a year. Okay. Judge Judy earned a few years ago like $100 million a year. Okay. So, look, I'm not in any way impugning one or the other, and and this is no statement on the quality of both of these amazing people. Okay, but I think even Judge Judy would not say that she is 1,000 times better a judge than Justice Ginsburg. Okay, my point being that the person that will excel the most in their career isn't necessarily the best person at that job. It's the person that's the best at marketing themselves, putting themselves out there, being better at interviewing, writing a better resume, being better at following up through the interview process, speaking to us and seeking out as many job opportunities as possible so they can pick the one that's the best. Okay, that's the person that's going to get the better job, not necessarily the person that's the best that has the best skills for the job.
Right. You're absolutely right.
Okay.
You're right.
So it's a really key thing for people to remember and be encouraged by.
Right. I know when I am on the interviewing panel, I never hire the person who has all of the skills, all of the experiences, all of the education. I don't. I always go for what I call the underdog, the one that's hungry, the one that has that great personality. They always, to me, turn out to be the best employees, right? And the reason why I call them the underdog, because probably like sometimes working in niche positions, sometimes we're already understaffed and you want someone who can come in and hit the ground running. But to me, people like that have great personality and they just want to learn and they're just great people. I always hire them and they have a sense of like integrity, and honesty. I love people like that. I always do. And it always, to me, turned out to be the best decisions.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
You're absolutely right. But I think people like when Judge Judy, we were saying earlier, she marketed well, because when you hear a judge yelling, you think of Judge Judy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's her thing, I think, and you're right, you have to find out what kind of sets you apart from the rest, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's
absolutely.
And I it's so weird because I told someone the other day, I said, I have a degree in marketing, right? But even now with technology and things like that, I had to rethink the way I was thinking.
Yeah.
Because you're right, marketing, interviews, resumes, things are different now. And you're right, you have to put yourself out there, but you can't be afraid to put yourself out there. You just have 100%. To go. Just jump in the deep end and just go with it. What are they going to say? No. Or they say, yeah, join.
100%. I couldn't agree more. I could not agree more.
What are they going to say? No.
Right. Exactly. And here's the thing. It's funny actually. I was telling this to one of my kids yesterday, that if someone says no, right? Then okay, they've said no. All right. But the thing is that if you don't ask, it's definitely going to be a no. If you ask, it might be a no, it might be a yes. But if you don't ask, it's definitely a no. All right. What was it that Joe DiMaggio said? I missed every single one of the pitches I didn't swing for. Yes. Yeah. So for me, that's really for me, that's the key point. That's really where the rubber hits the road, Yeah, swing. Yeah, it was so funny. I was telling my mother not too long ago, I said, you know what? I'm just going to keep on knocking and somebody's going to open the door. And I tell my daughter the same thing. I'm like, just keep knocking. Someone's going to open the door. And that's the opportunity. And when you get that opportunity, you got to go in there. You have to perform above and beyond. Right, 100%. You have to be like that Michael Jordan, Kobe type of, work ethic. You have to rise to the occasion. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Oh my gosh, this has been a great conversation. I can't wait till you come back. You know that we're going to talk about something else next time. I'm not going to give it away, kind of, sort of, but I'm not, because as you see from the name, we're going to talk about podcasting and getting monetized for podcasting. And he's going to show you how to become a millionaire from podcasting. I'm joking. Look, that's just me talking. That's not him. So don't hold him to him. That's not a contract. Okay. Give him a little bit, Simon. Give him a little bit. Okay. So as I was alluding to a little earlier, I have spent the last 2.5 years really getting into the podcasting world. And from a standing start, I built a podcast called The Conference Room, which is a top 1% global podcast. We have somewhere between 15 and 20,000 downloads every month. And all of this was from a standing start with, and we haven't spent a single dollar on advertising. Okay. It's all been organic growth. Okay, so when you're kind enough to invite me back, I'll come on and we'll talk about that journey, the things that we learnt, the techniques that we use, what makes a great podcast. I mean, who am I talking to? I'm talking to you. You know, you've got a fantastic podcast here, and what people can do if they either are thinking of having a podcast but can't quite put the pieces in place. Okay, if they have a podcast but it's not quite hitting their monetization goals, or if they have a podcast and they didn't even realize that they could monetize it. Okay, within the space of about 18 months, we built our podcast up to a 6-figure annual recurring revenue model, and anyone can. Okay, so that's what we'll be talking about when you have me on next. I think you might have hit mute, I'm afraid, Lamar.
Oh, I sure did. I'm sorry. Yep, there it is right there. I'm going to post it. So yes, please make sure that you reach out for the job hunting toolkit. That's excellent, because even for people who are not sure about what type of career they want, but I think it's important for someone who has been in the same job for about 15, 20 years. You know, you've been in that job for a long time. And then next thing you know, you're like, you know what? I'm thinking about doing a career change, I think that kit would be important for someone like that. Or you've been there forever, and then next thing you know, you got laid off. You know, so I think so, because so often, I mean, I don't know if you hear about it anymore like that, but people have been in positions for a long time. They actually have forgotten how to write a resume, how to interview, all those things. So please make sure you reach out and, you know, get his kit, reach out to him. Simon, where can they find you? Let them know.
So the easiest place to find me is either on Facebook. Just look for Simon Lader, right there. Oops, right there. Look for me, Simon Lader. Or you can find me on LinkedIn. Again, just look for Simon Lader, and this Brad Pitt-esque face will be there, so you'll know that it's me. Or you can also check out the conference room, which is on Spotify. It's called the Conference Room with Simon Lader. Or you can go to theconferenceroompodcast.com. You'll find us there as well.
Wow, I love it. Well, thank you so very much. And again, you know, we have already spoken, so you're definitely coming back. You already know when. You know, you already have a student. And so, hey, that's what it's about. And you know, I'm excited. I've asked you a couple of times. I can't wait. And what did I say even before we came on? I'm like, Simon, I'm afraid to hit this button, because, you know, you're like the master, the sensei and all, you know, of these podcasts. So I was nervous to hit the button, but I didn't. You okay. So yes, but please come on, because, you know, even with the podcast, it's about getting information out to help people, regardless of what it is. There's so many different podcasts out there, even if it's someone like finding a job, you know, you may go find information on a podcast or whatever. You know what? Reach out to Simon and get his toolkit.
Absolutely. And again, there are podcasts. Again, I don't want to kind of like use our powder when we're, you know, for something we're going to be talking about later. I want to keep the powder dry, but podcasting is something that if you have a passion for anything at all, okay, and you enjoy talking about it, either you enjoy talking about it yourself or you enjoy talking about it to other people, if you have intellectual curiosity, if you just enjoy immersing yourself in the world of something, and that could be anything at all. If that's the kind of person that you are and you enjoy talking, whether it's just you talking to a microphone by yourself or you talking to other people, as Lamar does and as my podcast is, then podcasting may well be not just a great way for you to share that passion for to the world, but it could be a very good side hustle. That could be the thing that makes you an extra car payment every month. It could be something that, makes you go to a nicer or better vacation once a year. It could be something that helps you save for your kids' college education. It could be something that actually replaces your income and becomes not just a side hustle anymore, but your actual full-time earnings. So it could be for everybody, but I won't say anymore.
Nope, we won't, because you're going to come back and you're going to get the full details. But thank you so very much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Everyone else out there, remember to share, subscribe, and like. Follow me on my socials. And as you see, we have some great guests with a wealth of information. So please take advantage of these people, because regardless, there's something out there for someone. And tonight, I'm sure someone had an aha moment, like, you know what? He said something that made sense. Or she said something that makes sense. I always tell people, like, look, this may be what I do, but guess what? I always bring other people on, because in school, you didn't go to one class, right? You went to different classes. So there's someone out there who can bring a different spin on something, or even more, or different, something that you can get it out of. So, but thank you so very much, Simon. Again, I appreciate you, and you're coming back. And thank you, everyone, for watching. I appreciate you all too. And we are out of here.
You've been listening to The Truth of the Matter with Dr. Spencer. Yes, we talk about taboo topics, but that's life, and we keep it real and raw. Our passion is to educate and enlighten. We hope you've enjoyed the show. If you did, make sure to like, rate, and review the show. And we'll be back soon. But if you have a unique relationship situation and you'd like help, or you're tired of having to choose between your career and personal life, Dr. Lamar Renee Spencer is a life alignment strategist and a certified life, relationship, and business coach. So make sure to reach out on Instagram and TikTok at Dr. Lamar Spencer, on Twitter at Dr. Spencer 15, on Facebook at Dr. Lamar Renee Spencer, and the website drlamarspencer.com. Or go old school and call 973-214-6464.
Don't forget to purchase the book, The Depth and Diversity with Relationships. Find it on Amazon and the website.
See you next time on The Truth of the Matter.